The enigmatic Black Knight satellite, a peculiar object that has allegedly been orbiting Earth for thousands of years, has sparked great speculation, debate, and fascination among conspiracy theorists and astronomers alike for well over a century since it was first detected. Is it a classified United States military project, a derelict Cold War-era Russian spy satellite lost in the vastness of space, or an extraterrestrial probe monitoring Earth? When Russian cosmonaut Sergei Krikalev, who was a part of the six-member crew of the NASA STS-88 Endeavour mission, looked out of the shuttle window to take photographs of an unknown object following NASA's protocol for UFO sightings, little could he have imagined the incredible excitement and controversy his actions would cause back on Earth. Although Krikalev was not the first to capture the strange-looking object on camera, his effort arguably produced the clearest pictures of the purported Black Knight satellite in 100 years. Intriguingly, those sensational photographs were published by NASA on their official website. Ufologists relished the opportunity to scrutinize the pictures, declaring they proved the Black Knight satellite was no figment of imagination, and that, as they had contended all along, it was an object of alien origin sent to surveil Earth from afar for unknown purposes. The dark satellite, or Black Knight satellite, grabbed the attention of scientists in the early days of space exploration during the 1950s, when puzzling signals were detected in near-polar orbit of the Earth. It was a time of heightened tensions between the United States of America and the Soviet Union. Inexplicable occurrences, whose sequence appears to have been orchestrated by some unseen hand, happened on the back of a series of events involving the United States. These unprecedented episodes broadly include the Battle of Los Angeles during the Second World War in February 1942, the detonation of the first atomic bomb in White Sands Proving Ground, New Mexico, in July 1945, the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August of the same year, sightings of odd aerial objects by pilot Kenneth Arnold in Washington State in June 1947, which were termed flying saucers in the press, the alleged crash of an extraterrestrial disk, and the subsequent retrieval of alien bodies in Roswell, New Mexico in July 1947, and finally, UFO sightings over Washington, D.C. on 2 consecutive Saturday nights in July 1952 that caused widespread fear. A noteworthy addition to this list is the considerable panic that ensued during an October 1938 Halloween radio broadcast. Directed and chillingly narrated by Orson Welles, a radio drama of The War of the Worlds, the classic sci-fi novel penned by H.G. Wells, left terrified listeners thinking a Martian invasion was underway. All these events were still fresh in people's minds, and sightings of UFOs or unidentified flying objects became a regular feature, what with the paranoid citizenry having their eyes glued to the skies. The 1950s were also an era when the possibility of life on other planets and alien visitations began to enter public consciousness more than it ever had over the past half a century. Newspaper reports and magazine articles, science fiction novels and Hollywood movies, and of course, ufology societies kept everyone informed and on the edge of their seats. On May 14, 1954, bang in the middle of the Cold War, the Aviation Week and Space Technology magazine reported that the United States Air Force had detected at least 1 and possibly 2 artificial satellites circling the Earth, and that they were being kept under close observation. In the normal course, such news would have constituted run-of-the-mill reportage, hardly raising eyebrows among the public, though it would doubtless have caused alarm in the Defense Department and echelons of political power if these objects were assumed to be spy satellites. But the Aviation Week article sent chills down everyone's spines, because at the time it was published, humans had still not achieved the capability to launch satellites in orbit. The shocking information about the mysterious satellites was revealed by Donald Edward Keyhoe, a Marine Corps major-turned-UFO researcher and founder of the National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena, or NICAP, who claimed government scientists working at White Sands, New Mexico, had made the discovery. The Air Force issued a vehement denial to Keyhoe's statement, maintaining they were not watching any satellites, artificial or otherwise. Skeptics, on the other hand, accused Keyhoe of making outlandish statements to promote his latest book on UFOs. Yet, behind the scenes, the Pentagon swiftly swung into action, even as a stunned U.S. citizenry grappled with the implications of the news. Upon tracking 2 satellites emitting radio signals as they circled at 400 miles and 600 miles above our planet, Pentagon officials immediately suspected the Soviet Union. The Russians were not just blamed of espionage, but were presumed to have beaten the United States in the space race. The Russians categorically denied these charges and in turn held the Americans responsible for the satellites. If neither the US nor Russia had secretly sent a satellite into space, whom did it belong to? Aliens, claim UFO hunters, convinced that it was the Black Knight satellite. The Air Force sought the help of Dr. Lincoln LaPaz, the then head of the Extraterrestrial Bodies Institute at the University of New Mexico, to determine the nature of the anomalous objects. Dr. LaPaz was no ordinary scientist. He possessed vast experience in conducting UFO investigations for the U.S. Air Force, particularly the Roswell non-terrestrial vehicle crash incident of 1947. LaPaz teamed up with astronomer Clyde Tombaugh, the discoverer of Pluto in 1930, to confirm that the near-Earth orbiting objects were natural, meaning they were no more than meteors. However, another version of events states that it was LaPaz and Tombaugh who had originally detected the 2 objects in the murky darkness of space while working on behalf of the Air Force, hinting they could be artificially built satellites, and that the duo later stoutly denied ever having made such an erroneous identification or even working together at White Sands Missile Range. Since the Aviation Week article received tremendous traction amongst the press and public, the Pentagon rushed to allay growing fears about the unusual outer space objects. The scare over the observance of 2 previously unobserved satellites orbiting the Earth has dissipated with the identification of the objects as natural, not artificial satellites. Ufologists, though, assert this was the convenient, conventional explanation, one meant to distract and steer the public away from the truth. They point to the fact that the Soviet Union launched the beach ball-sized Sputnik 1, humankind's first-ever artificial satellite, into space from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan only in October 1957, a full 3 years after the detection of the so-called Black Knight satellite. But ufologists could hardly have imagined that there was much more to come in this extraordinary saga. On February 11, 1960, a New York Times article reported that U.S. tracking stations had detected a mysterious dark and silent satellite wheeling overhead on a regular and roughly pole-to-pole or polar orbit. Such an orbit would endow the object with the exceptional capability to observe every part of the Earth's surface. The Navy had employed the latest component of the Space Watch program called Dark Fence, designed by the Naval Research Laboratory to find and track this satellite. It was a kind of radar tripwire that stretched across the width of the United States to help keep track of satellites whose radios had gone silent. When the object showed up during 2 passes of the Dark Fence, the news was communicated to President Eisenhower and marked top secret. However, though initially classified as a Soviet spy satellite, it was later revealed that the object constituted the remains of an Air Force Discoverer 5 satellite, one of the first photographic reconnaissance satellites built by the United States. You would be mistaken if you thought only UFO hunters believed that the strange objects detected in outer space were otherworldly. In 1960, Ronald Bracewell, professor of electrical engineering of the Space, Telecommunications, and Radio Science Laboratory at Stanford University, published an article in the authoritative scientific journal, Nature, in which he advanced the possibility of the presence of an alien probe that was trying to establish contact with Earth. As proof of his theory, the scientist cited the phenomenon of delays in radio signals observed since the beginning of the 20th century. In 1961, French author, ufologist, and astronomer Jacques Vallée divulged that while working on the staff of the French Space Committee, he had taken photos and filmed a bright oil tanker-sized satellite. While tracking its trajectory, Vallée realized it was in a retrograde orbit, meaning in an east-to-west orbit, opposite to Earth's rotation. However, when he showed the astounding scientific material he had gathered to his superiors, he claims it was not just confiscated, but destroyed. Certain UFO researchers opine that amateur American astronomer Stephen Slayton was the first to observe the mysterious object way back in 1958. While observing the moon with a 20-inch telescope, Slayton is said to have witnessed a dark spherical object moving at high speed on an unusual elliptical trajectory before disappearing when it reached the edge of the lunar disk. Based on these characteristics, he concluded it was artificial. But the U.S. military dismissed Slayton's sighting as a meteorite flying near the moon, as the object had not been recorded by any radar station. According to researchers, there are two possible origins of the name Black Knight. The first one maintains that it was derived from a 1972 science fiction novel, The Destruction of Fianna, by Soviet author Alexander Kazantsev. In the story, a civilization from the planet Phaeton that was destroyed in a nuclear disaster had launched the Black Prince satellite into Earth's orbit to communicate with Earthlings. When Kazantsev's novel was translated into English, the phrase Black Prince was changed to Black Knight. It is believed that this fictitious satellite lent its name to the space object discovered by Slayton. The second option is connected to United Kingdom's research ballistic missile called the Black Knight that was launched at Woomera, Australia on September 7, 1958. Whatever the origin of the mysterious satellite's moniker, it has stuck like glue. In the first episode of this series, we learnt about the detection of the mysterious Black Knight satellite in the 1950s and 60s, the alarm it raised in the military and Air Force, and the panic and confusion it caused amongst the public at the height of the Cold War. Among other things, we analyzed denials of the strange satellite's existence by the powers that be, reports to the contrary in the press, and respected publications by leading scientists, informed whistleblowers, and amateur astronomers, sightings of UFOs above prominent U.S. buildings, and radar detections of the satellite that led to a vicious blame game between arch rivals, the United States and the Soviet Union, in the early days of the space race. We also briefly studied photographs of the purported Black Knight satellite snapped by NASA astronauts, no less. and closed by exploring the origin of the satellite's name. Let's continue our journey by going back 125 years to the very beginning of the Black Knight satellite saga. To gain a proper understanding of the subject, it is important to study key instances of signals received from the Black Knight satellite in chronological order. In 1899, Serbian-American inventor and electrical engineer Nikola Tesla erected a large tower at his laboratory in Colorado Springs to study atmospheric electricity and wireless power. While conducting experiments, he intercepted repeating signals from outer space. At first, Tesla speculated the transmission had originated from a planet communicating with Earth, noting in a February 9, 1901, Collier's weekly article titled "Talking with the Planets."
The feeling is constantly growing on me that I had been the first to hear the greeting of one planet to another. It dawned upon me that I had observed something possibly of incalculable consequences to mankind. I felt as though I were present at the birth of a new knowledge or the revelation of a great truth.
Upon further study, Tesla believed the radio waves emanated from a satellite orbiting Earth, until, finally, he formed the opinion that the signals came from an intelligent alien civilization based on Mars. In a February 25, 1923, article titled "A Giant Eye to See Round the World" that appeared in the Albany Telegram, the genius scientist wrote,
"I believe the Martians used numbers for communication because numbers are universal."
Radio waves, a type of electromagnetic radiation, have the lowest frequencies and longest wavelengths in the electromagnetic spectrum and can be larger than our planet. Given that the very first source of non-terrestrial radio waves were detected from the constellation of Sagittarius in the center of the Milky Way galaxy by American physicist and radio engineer Carl Jansky. Only in April 1933, the scientific community has explained away Tesla's signals as nothing more than radio wave pulses from a pulsar. But this interpretation is hotly contested by ufologists because Guglielmo Marconi, the Italian inventor and electrical engineer, known for his creation of a practical radio wave-based wireless telegraph system in 1896, also detected the same signals. But what convinced Tesla that the transmission had come from Mars? By the time H.G. Wells published The War of the Worlds, the red planet had been observed through telescopes for nearly 300 years, beginning with Galileo Galilei's studies of the phases of Mars in 1610, Giovanni Cassini's identification of the planet's polar ice caps in 1666, and Italian astronomer Giovanni Schiaparelli's observations of geological features, which he called canali, or channels, in 1877. The mistranslation of Schiaparelli's canali into English as canals led to the popular belief that Mars was inhabited by an extraterrestrial race capable of engineering and agriculture. American mathematician and astronomer Percival Lowell was tremendously inspired by the research on Mars that had preceded him. From his observatory in Flagstaff, Arizona, he examined the red planet extensively for 15 years. This included studies conducted during the 1907 opposition, or the period when it was closer to Earth. A prolific writer, Lowell postulated in his books Mars in 1895, Mars and its Canals in 1906, and Mars as the Abode of Life in 1908, that an advanced alien race indigenous to the planet had built canals to convey water from the polar caps to irrigate the remaining arable land in their arid, dying landscape. He confidently informed the editors of the journal, Nature, in London.
After the melting of the South Polar Cap had got well underway, canals began to make their appearance about it. The planet is at present the abode of intelligent constructive life, and I may say in this connection that the theory of such life upon Mars was deduced from the outcome of observation, and my observations since have fully confirmed it.
Lowell accompanied his hypothesis with illustrations of imaginary geological features on Mars, just as Schiaparelli had done earlier. But Lowell's grand pronouncements about Martian canals and their alleged creators had been discredited by the time of his death in 1916. The Times trod delicately in a valedictory editorial stating, "The present judgment of the scientific world is that he was too largely governed in his researches by a vivid imagination. Nevertheless, the determined efforts of Percival Lowell to unravel the mysteries of the Red Planet and the way his scientific writings played a role in shaping Tesla's thoughts cannot be overlooked." Historical records and anecdotal evidence add further layers to the mystery of the Black Knight legend. Although the Moon is our only celestial satellite, alien theorists contend that texts from various ancient cultures make references to a dark object, also called a dark arc, orbiting the Earth. Babylonian, Egyptian, and Greek mythology dwell specifically on the stars of the Boötes constellation. Even Homer mentions Boötes as a celestial reference for navigation in his epic poem, Odyssey. Unsurprisingly, the Boötes connection is at the heart of the Black Knight satellite narrative too. One of the most shocking aspects of the Black Knight satellite is its alleged age. According to one theorist, the alien probe has been orbiting Earth for approximately 13,000 years, long before the advent of human civilization. Scottish science fiction author Duncan Lunan made this age-related proposal in a 1973 Spaceflight magazine article, published by the British Interplanetary Society. He proposed the vast number of years after analyzing the long-delayed echoes, or LDEs, received by Norwegian engineer and ham radio operator Jørgen Hals in 1927. Lunan hypothesized that a 13,000-year-old object orbiting the Moon could have produced those LDEs. To arrive at this conclusion, he connected the satellite with the location of the North Pole star, Polaris, and then plotted a vertical axis of the transmitted pulse sequence with a horizontal axis of echo delay time. In 1998, Lunan explained this process.
I tried plotting the delay times against the order in which the echoes were received, and at only the second attempt I found what looked like a star map.
Lunan disclosed that the hidden radio message sent by the alien space probe announced,
"Start here. Our home is Epsilon Boötes, which is a double star. We live on the 6th planet of 7, coming from the Sun, which is the larger of the two. Our 6th planet has 1 moon. Our 4th planet has 3. Our 1st and 3rd planets each have 1. This updates the position of Arcturus shown on our maps."
The message also supposedly said, "Our probe is in the orbit of your moon." Remember the object Slayton claimed to have seen streak across the moon in 1958? Or references to the Boötes constellation in ancient cultures? Why, even the LDEs heard by Tesla, Marconi, and Hals. Was it the Black Knight satellite all along? In deciphering the code, Lunan pinpointed the origin of the probe to Epsilon Boötes, also known as Izar, a binary star system located in the constellation of Boötes. But he hit a roadblock when he plotted out the coordinates on the star map, as they did not line up with the position of the stars mentioned in the alien message, especially the position of Arcturus, the brightest star in that constellation. Things dramatically fell into place when Lunan, considering axial precession, adjusted the star map to reflect the position of Boötes constellation, as it would have appeared a staggering 13,000 years ago. He found an exact match, which meant the Black Knight satellite arrived here in 11,000 BC. Despite gaining wide publicity in major news outlets, such as the New York Times, Time magazine, and the CBS Evening News, Lunan retracted his conclusions in 1976. But that did not shake the conviction of the ufology community, who swore that the Black Knight satellite was real. However, Lunan reinterpreted a portion of his theory in 1998 on the grounds of positional astronomy. In the previous episode, we evaluated the research conducted by Nikola Tesla, Guglielmo Marconi, Jürgen Hals, and Duncan Lunin into the strange signals, or LDEs, received from outer space, which were subsequently traced to a mysterious object called the Black Knight satellite. We also learnt about Giovanni Schiaparelli's studies of Mars and how that led to astronomers such as Percival Lowell believing the red planet harbored an advanced alien civilization. We then delved into ancient references in world mythology about a dark arc orbiting the Earth. Before closing, we analyzed the true age of the Black Knight satellite, reviewed Lunin's decipherment of an alien message from 13,000 years ago, and established its connection to the Boötes constellation. Let us now embark on the final phase of our investigations of the incredible Black Knight satellite. Alleged sightings of the Black Knight satellite by NASA astronauts during space missions have added massive fuel to the speculation fire. In 1963, during his 15th orbit on the Faith 7 spacecraft, Gordon Cooper, one of NASA's original Mercury 7 astronauts, claimed to have spotted the Black Knight satellite. The object, that he described as emitting a greenish glow with a distinct shape, was confirmed by tracking stations. This information not only went missing from NASA's mission transcripts, but Cooper's personal records too did not reveal any such report was made during the orbit. The truth was irrevocably buried when Cooper retracted his statement upon returning. The media blackout which ensued on the topic, and the U.S. Space Agency's bizarre explanation that their ace astronaut had suffered cosmic hallucinations. Claims and counterclaims about the Black Knight came to a dramatic head when NASA released sensational photographs taken during the 11-day STS-88 Endeavour mission in late December 1998, the first space shuttle mission to assemble vital components of the International Space Station, the first permanently manned satellite in Earth's orbit. Among other payloads on board the STS-88 mission to the ISS was the first American-built module, the Unity node, which was designed to connect the Russian and United States segments of the station, where the crew shared meals. Dubbed as some of the weirdest-looking 70mm photographs to ever emerge from the Space Shuttle program, the main controversial image showed a dark, oddly shaped, elongated object with what appeared to be strange protrusions, an abnormal design for a spacecraft that indicated it could not have been conceived or built by humans. Ecstatic ufologists instantly identified it as the Black Knight satellite and proclaimed the photograph in question was undeniable and compelling evidence that the craft originated from an alien world. Unruffled by such conjecture, NASA cataloged the image, not as one that showed a spacecraft of extraterrestrial origin, but with a more mundane explanation: space debris. Remnants, they explained, from a white thermal blanket that came loose from its tether and floated away during an extravehicular activity, or EVA, commonly referred to as a spacewalk, performed by mission specialists Jerry Ross and Jim Newman. When the astronauts embarked on this spacewalk to continue the installation of the Unity node, they began by connecting power and data cables to permit power generated from Zarya, which means sunrise in Russian. It was the functional cargo block built by Boeing and the Russian Space Agency to activate the systems on board Unity. During the EVA outside Unity, Jim and Ross installed 2 antennas, removed launch restraint pins, and installed covers on data relay boxes to protect them from sunlight. It was during the last of these procedures that the crew spotted and photographed a thermal blanket floating away.
Jerry, one of the thermal covers got away from you.
How did it do that? Jim saw it too, I'll guarantee you. Where'd it go?
It's out my window on the,
I don't believe this. Going out that way pretty quickly.
And Houston Endeavour, one of the trunnion covers is straight out from the commander's window too.
So, is there a rational explanation for the black object seen in the photos? The answer, according to NASA, is simple. The reflective surface of the thermal blanket is facing the darkness of space, away from the light of the Earth. Though NASA reported that the debris fell from orbit a few days later and burned up in the atmosphere on re-entry, things were to take an even more peculiar turn. NASA rendered the original photo links inoperative during routine website maintenance. This innocuous move snowballed overnight, with UFO theorists claiming a cover-up. Though events such as these played out amply in the public domain, they have not changed the minds of those who believe NASA is intentionally concealing information it has gathered over the years about the true nature and origin of the Black Knight satellite. Ufologists even claim the space agency is in communication with the sneaky satellite. Debunking the alien origin hypothesis, skeptics argue that the Black Knight satellite is space junk from a lost piece of man-made technology. They point to the improbability and enormous challenges of maintaining such a satellite in orbit for extended periods, let alone 13,000 years, particularly without detection. But who is to say what capabilities a technologically advanced alien civilization may command? Lest we forget, in the form of the Voyager golden records aboard the Voyager 1 and 2 spacecrafts, we humans sent a kind of time capsule showcasing the sounds and images of planet Earth, indicating the origin of the spacecrafts and advertising our location for discovery by potential intelligent alien worlds. So why would another species not attempt to communicate in a similar manner, such as the Black Knight satellite purportedly does? Besides, if we can send orbital spacecraft, probes, and satellites to study nearby planets and other parts of the solar system, what would prevent an advanced extraterrestrial race from doing the same? What is accurate, though, is that with the sheer amount of debris that clutters the space around our planet today, it would prove difficult to locate any prospective non-terrestrial technological artifacts that may be watching us. While current European Space Agency data reveals there are 5,800 functioning satellites in orbit, the United States Space Surveillance Network estimates that there are over 170 million pieces of space debris, ranging from 1 millimeter to 10 centimeters, orbiting Earth. NASA states that as of January 2022, they have calculated that this material collectively weighs more than 9,000 metric tons. But space surveillance networks find it incredibly hard to log and continuously track space junk due to technological limitations. Is the Black Knight satellite our first interstellar visitor? Probably not. Using the Pan-STARRS telescope in October 2017, astronomers detected Oumuamua, meaning scout in Hawaiian. Speculated to use solar energy for propulsion, it was the first interstellar object to pass through our solar system. As expected, the sighting of the rocky, cigar-shaped object with a somewhat reddish hue sent the scientific world into a tizzy. Astronomer Avi Loeb, founder of the Galileo Project, that is aimed at detecting extraterrestrial technological signatures produced by extraterrestrial technological civilizations, or ETCs, suggested that Oumuamua could be a product of alien technology. It boggles the mind to think about the many interstellar objects that may have gone unnoticed over the past 100 years, if not more, merely because we did not possess the means to identify them until about a decade ago. If you've already watched the previous 3 installments about the enigmatic Black Knight satellite, you'll know that this mini-documentary series on our channel is one of the most comprehensive efforts to unravel the subject on YouTube. Backed by solid, in-depth research, we learned many extraordinary and obscure details about the mysterious extraterrestrial communication device, all of which offered much food for thought. We humans have been in awe of the Black Knight satellite right from its detection 125 years ago. The trove of data and photographic evidence available today no longer make it easy to dismiss the satellite as a figment of fertile imagination. In this concluding episode, we'll delve into even more intriguing facets of the celebrated Black Knight satellite. The Black Knight story is alive and well, precisely 125 years after Tesla first reported signals that apparently emanated from the object. Numerous sightings and photographs of this otherworldly satellite continue to be reported by sky-gazers from all over the world. In late 2020, a video that purportedly showed the Black Knight satellite hovering over Santa Rosa in the Philippine province of Laguna circulated on YouTube. The fuzzy video showed a brownish-red tinted object with what appeared to be spikes emerging from an opening on its top, moving silently through the sky. But former NASA engineer James Oberg said that most UFO sightings were nothing more than space dandruff floating in front of cameras. He argued that the human brain is not wired to make sense of such tiny objects in our skies. Be that as it may, the shape of the object witnessed over the Philippines bore a striking resemblance to the alleged Black Knight satellite photographed by NASA astronauts in 1998. But as always, NASA scientists remain unmoved. They say people who regularly mistake birds, planes, weather phenomena, and optical illusions for UFOs are taking it a bit too far with the Black Knight topic. Moreover, they raise a moot point regarding the improbability of a satellite floating below the clouds in our atmosphere, as the satellites closest to Earth orbit around 200 miles in space. Skeptics and NASA insiders have long charged UFO hunters of making exaggerated claims and fabricating conspiracy theories out of thin air. They allege that despite the lack of concrete evidence, Black Knight devotees combine a collection of disconnected stories, some bordering on the downright preposterous, into one fanciful narrative. But by all counts, it seems alien theorists cannot be simply wished away. Not just are their numbers increasing day by day, but with the aid of the internet, they are a global community that digs deep into declassified government documents, sharing information and images about UFO sightings and related events, and registering personal experiences online in real time. Above all, they do not hesitate to question the official version of events. Under the cover of darkness, the Black Knight satellite that is estimated to weigh a whopping 15 tons has stealthily watched the rise and fall of civilizations and cultures throughout the world. Though it ranks as one of the most seen, heard, and photographed objects in space history, we have no clue why it is here, who or what is monitoring us, and for what purpose. Are we akin to animals under observation, as posited in the zoo hypothesis? Noted planetary scientist Carl Sagan had this to say about the Voyager Golden Record. The spacecraft will be encountered and the record played only if there are advanced spacefaring civilizations in interstellar space. But what if these superior extraterrestrial entities choose not to respond? Probably because they have already learnt everything there is to know about the pale blue dot we inhabit, the one that Voyager 1 photographed from 3.7 billion miles away in 1990. While optimistically minded people say the Black Knight satellite was sent to raise our level of consciousness and technology, or maybe even to prevent us from destroying ourselves. Others fear it is a weapon that could annihilate us or instigate an invasion by harvesting information about us and relaying that data to its planet of origin. With so many divergent views on the subject, it is impossible to reach a definitive conclusion. Alien enthusiasts say the flurry of activity on the UFO subject over the past few years is welcome, as it was long overdue. Dubbed tinfoil hatters and nutcases for decades, experiencers of the UFO phenomenon from across the world are now being taken far more seriously. Astonishing Pentagon videos and photos of alien craft making inconceivable maneuvers. Whistleblowers from the Air Force and Navy spilling the beans about their personal encounters before the U.S. Congress. The declassification of material pertaining to historic events involving unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAP, as the U.S. military has now rebranded them, and the heightened interest displayed by politicians and the media, all beg the question, is the public being prepared for imminent disclosure? But wait. Is it that simple, or are we being readied for something else? The revelation that German-American aerospace engineer and space architect Wernher von Braun allegedly made on his deathbed is haunting.
And the last card they will play will be the alien card.
In March 2017, a conspiracy theorist released a video claiming the Black Knight satellite had been shot down by a secret Illuminati warplane. Despite garnering hundreds of thousands of views, opinion about the footage available on YouTube remains divided, as its authenticity cannot be determined. With superlative software technology, including AI, available to the public like never before, it is now easy to fake videos of alleged extraterrestrial craft and alien entities. Separating the wheat from the chaff has indeed become a Herculean task for researchers who earnestly pursue the UFO subject. Denouncing such online gimmicks that spread disinformation, they lament that it not only enables naysayers to easily discredit their findings, but that it dents the hard work they invest to unravel the phenomenon. In 2015, Pepsi released a short film titled Black Knight Decoded, with the claim that the satellite's origin can be traced back 13,000 years, and then adding confidently, "This is not science fiction, this is real." Despite the Hollywood spin, the origin and purpose of the Black Knight satellite has continued to perplex observers. Dismissing all talk of the Black Knight satellite, NASA reiterates that photographs of the so-called object are wrongly interpreted. Space scientists direct attention to the fact that if it was a spacecraft or satellite wheeling in polar orbit, it would have been traveling at 10 kilometers or 6.2 miles per second. At that remarkable speed, the STS-88 Endeavour crew couldn't have taken the number of images that they did. Down to this day, the lack of official confirmation about the ominous satellite has fueled numerous conspiracy theories, making it one of the most debated enigmas in space exploration history. No matter which side of the fence you are on, curiosity is an intrinsic human trait, more so when it concerns the many unknowns in the cosmos. The truth about the Black Knight satellite, that clinching piece of evidence everyone is waiting for with bated breath, may elude us for now, but the quest for answers will continue forever.